Commissioners, the proposed budget for fiscal year 2013 is approximately $841 million. And this chart reflects it by major cost component and also by division. As the board will recall, each division is required to have their own individual budget appropriation. And you can see for the electric division, that is $558 million. For gas, $109.5, water, $56.4 million, wastewater, $116.6 million. By major cost component, which I will go into some detail here in just a few moments, wholesale energy, and that's electric and gas combined, right at $481 million, O&M $116.5 million, capital $158 million, debt service $59 million, taxes and tax equivalent payments $26 million approximately. And this is the same budget that we went over, gave a high-level overview for the board at the April meeting. Nothing has changed. Compared to the current fiscal year cash expenditures, fiscal year 2012, the proposed budget is up slightly, 1.6%, or about $13 million over the current year. This was expected for several reasons. First of all, you can see that wholesale energy is up almost $4 million. We are anticipating and hoping that we will sell more electric and natural gas in fiscal year 2013. You'll recall we've discussed with the board that this past winter was the mildest over the past 25 years. So if indeed we do have the increased customer demand, that means that we will purchase more electric power from TVA, more gas from our suppliers to meet that demand. And that is the reason wholesale energy is up. O&M and capital combined are up $4.2 million, and that's about 1.5% combined. And I combined them because it's really the same reason driving them both. We're going to have a full fiscal year of accelerated asset replacement and increased maintenance on our electric and water Century 2 programs. You may recall that when we re-implemented those programs this past fiscal year, we started in October. So we'll be replacing more poles in fiscal year 2013. We'll be replacing more underground cable. We'll be replacing more water main in FY13. So as a result, you have some modest cost increases for that. And that's the primary driver there. For debt service, up $3.8 million, that's about 7%. The reason is we are proposing to issue $120 million in new bonds for electric, gas, and wastewater in the upcoming fiscal year. And that's part of funding their capital programs, respectively. The debt service associated with the new bonds is about $3 million in FY13, and that's the primary driver for that. And then in lieu of tax payments and FICA tax, in lieu of tax payments is the primary driver there. It's going to be up $1.1 million, in total $1.3 million over the current year. That's simply a reflection of the capital investment in our systems that is occurring during the current year. In lieu of tax payments are largely based upon net plant values. Net plant basically goes up every year for all four of the systems. That's the reason for that increase. So again, at $841 million, up $13 million, or about 1.5% over the current year. Any questions on that? Okay. Commissioners, I'll transition now the next 5 slides, take the major cost components and break it down into some detail. So a couple of these, there's a lot of numbers. So bear with me. Feel free to answer any questions or ask any questions. You can answer them too if you want to. For wholesale energy cost, again, $481 million. The pie chart on the left is the breakdown. $420 million for the purchase of 6 billion kilowatt hours of electric power from TVA to meet the needs of our electric system customers. The rest, the $59 million, is in natural gas wholesale cost. That provides for the purchase of commodity from our suppliers. It also provides for us to be able to pay the pipelines for our capacity reservation and storage reservation costs. We have to pay them for the right to transport on the pipe and to use their storage facilities as well.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
I don't know where to ask this question, but I might as well now.
Okay.
The TVA's, I'll call them fluctuations in their pricing, the fuel cost adjustments, or first of all, in the last 12 months, have they had one increase besides fuel costs?
They had a base rate increase in October of last year.
Okay. Everything since then has been
And fuel cost adjustments. correct.
So are we anticipating another base rate increase along with the other adjustments they make?
We are not aware of a base rate increase at this point in time.
Okay.
So it has not been built into the budget.
And the fuel costs though are still about,
Monthly
we pay
fuel
for
cost
them. That's a
adjustments.
monthly thing, right?
Right, and we've looked out over time. They have forecasts for that. They provide them to us. They're not necessarily the most reliable. We sort of look more on the history of that to build that into the forecast. On the FCA component, I don't think there's a whole lot of fluctuation in that from the current year.
Okay, and really that doesn't affect what we're projecting here. We try to guess at it,
Right. It wouldn't be as substantial,
but, okay.
but if it does increase, then that flows right through to our rates. So it's not like we don't have the ability to recover that cost.
Yes, on the natural gas, you said lower commodity prices offers increased purchases. So are you buying more because the gas is cheap? I thought we did this monthly thing.
And we're buying more because of increased customer demand.
Ah.
Anticipated increased customer
Okay.
demand. We're projecting to buy more. But the commodity price on a per unit basis is down about 16% compared to
But
the
we're
current year.
limited because of the storage, right? You can only buy so much.
That is correct. We only buy certain amounts because we'll have so much that will come out of storage as
Yeah.
well. That's correct. And we've already talked about it, but on the right, you do see the variances. Again, electric's going to be up because of the volume purchases. Natural gas is going to be down because the decrease in commodity prices is going to more than offset the cost associated with the increased purchases. So that's wholesale energy. On O&M, $116.5 million, and you can see from the pie chart on the left-hand side of the slide that, as typically the case is, the majority of O&M is from labor-related expenses, and that will be 52% of the proposed budget. Specifically in that $60 million, $43 million for payroll, and that's the O&M portion of payroll. There's about $12 million in payroll that will be reflected in capital projects or be expensed to capital projects. So again, total is about $55 million, but what's in the O&M budget is $43 million in payroll. On benefits, for several items there, but for active employees, the cost of medical claims is projected to be $8 million in next year's budget. And for post-employment benefits, in total around $8 million as well. That covers retiree medical claims, contributions to our pension trust fund, and also our 401k match. In total, about $8 million in next fiscal year's budget. Moving on to the, I guess it's the blue slice of the pie, on outside services, that represents payments that we will make to contractors that perform services on behalf of KUB. The largest portion of that $27 million is $7 million for vegetation management. We also have $3 million that will go for contract meter reading and other related services, $3 million for facilities management and maintenance, and about $500,000 for our pole inspection program under Century 2 for electric.
So in very round numbers, is vegetation management a lot different from 3 or 4 years ago?
The budget for it.
But that's $7 million.
The budget is consistent with last year, but over time it has increased modestly. If you went back 3 or 4 years, it's going to be in the $5.5 million range, something such as that.
And Mark, and our saving for contracting our meter reading out, is that the right amount? I mean, we're saving by contracting out over the years before we start doing that. And we read them ourselves before, didn't we?
We read them ourselves before. I guess it was in the mid-1990s that we began that transition to do contract meter reading, and the savings have been significant over that period of time. Obviously, we pay right now around 45 cents per read, which hasn't changed that much over the life of the various contracts that we've had with utility meter services. So, yes, to answer your question, significant savings have been received over the years since we did that.
Now, did we change the company last year, or did they go change the name themselves?
They just changed their name.
Okay.
They changed it. I said utility meter services. It's actually Grid One now.
Sure.
Yeah, same company, just new name.
Mark, what is it the makeup of the utility expense?
The majority of it, of course, every facility that we have will have some level of utility expense, but the majority of that $8 million is going to go for the electric power to run our plants and remote sites. In particular, the various wastewater treatment facilities and then our MVW water treatment plant.
Where does it show up where we have the shrinkage on what we pay, what we buy, and what we actually sell? Where does that show up as a line item?
With respect to our losses, or
Well, if we buy $100 worth of electricity PVA, and we can only bill $96 of it, where does the $4 go?
well, the $100 is going to be shown in the wholesale power cost budget. That's what we're buying from TVA. And then we said $98 of that you're going to recover from your customers. That's going to be in the revenue. So the rest, essentially the cost of that is in your power cost budget.
So there's not a line item for the shrinkage of,
No, it's just the distinction between revenue and power cost, basically. But we anticipate what that's going to be, and there is a loss component built into all of our rates, essentially to recover that additional cost. There's not a matching revenue for that cost.